What happens when a script about a loner battling terrorists gets turned into a movie about a hijacked plane? You get a mad Brit with a golden mullet and a security expert smashing bad guys at 30,000 feet. So how did a $50 million action movie named after a ketchup bottle become the film that helped turn Snipes into a proper action star? Let's find out. This is the history of Passenger 57.
Who's in charge? I am.
The original version of the movie was written by Stuart Raffil as an action film for someone like Clint Eastwood. The story followed a grieving man who boarded a plane after travelling through Spain to bury his son. On that flight, he gets stuck next to a terrorist, and once the plane is hijacked, it blows past a simple hostage situation. The passengers are taken to Iran and put in cages, leaving the lead to have to escape, rescue the hostages, and save the day. When Columbia got hold of the script, they liked the action, but the film was deemed too expensive to make, so the script was dumped on a shelf until Warner Brothers bought it. Raffil came back, did a couple of rewrites, and then went off to work on another movie. So the studio brought in Dan Gordon and David Lowery to help reshape it. By the time Raffil came back, the film had changed beyond recognition. Most of the Iran story was gone, and only the first quarter of his work survived the finished movie. Now the story followed John Cutter, a security expert who ends up on the same flight as a British terrorist being dragged back to LA. With the film now stripped down to one hijacked plane, Raffil still needed a title. When he saw a bottle of Heinz 57 ketchup, he had a light bulb moment. Why not call the movie Passenger 57? So with the title sorted, the next move was finding the right guy to carry it. Initially the role was offered to Sylvester Stallone, but he passed on it to make Stop or My Mum Will Shoot, so they offered the role to Brian Bosworth. But surgery from his football injury took him out of the running. Then Warner Brothers offered Steven Seagal 2 movies, Passenger 57 and Under Siege, and as everyone knows, he chose Under Siege. So the film was reworked around the black action star, and they started thinking of Eddie Murphy or Denzel Washington. But those 2 names never came to fruition, so Wesley Snipes took the role of John Cutter. Then Bruce Payne came in as Charles Rane, the British terrorist with the blonde mullet, a cold stare, and the energy of a man who would ruin your flight before the drinks trolley even came out. Payne saw Rane as part criminal and part lunatic, not some political crusader. For the part of Sly Delvecchio, the role was first offered to Michael Madsen, who actually turned it down, so the role went to Tom Sizemore. Alongside them came Elizabeth Hurley as Sabrina Ricci, while Robert Hooks played FBI agent Dwight Henderson, with his son Kevin Hooks directing the movie. So the film had its phases. Now it needed music that could make one hijacked plane feel even nastier. That job went to Stanley Clarke, the jazz bassist who already worked on Boys in the Hood and The 5 Heartbeats. For Passenger 57, he gave the film a score that mixed jazz with bigger orchestral pieces. Norman Brown's cover of Stevie Wonder's Too High also turned up in the film, keeping that slick early 90s feel.
Once again, who's in charge? You are. Wesley Snipes. No, this is not it.
When Passenger 57 hit cinemas in '92, it went straight to #1 at the US box office, knocking Under Siege off the top spot, which is pretty funny when Steven Seagal had picked that one instead. That opening brought in around $10 million, and by the end of its run, around $66 million worldwide. Producer Lee Rich said audiences wanted 90 minutes of entertainment, and the humor helped them enjoy the violence and action without taking it too seriously. So Warner Brothers had its hit, the audience turned up, but some critics still found something to moan about. The script took a proper kicking, mainly for its wobbly story and implausible action, but Wesley Snipes and Bruce Payne came out of it much better. Snipes was seen as the thing holding the film together, while Payne got some of the strongest notices for going full nutcase as Charles Rane. Empire called Payne a brilliantly disconcerting madman. The New York Times also picked up on the humor Payne brought to his role. while Radio Times said Payne and Snipes both gave charismatic performances.
You ever play roulette?
On occasion.
Well, let me give you a word of advice.
Always bet on black.
Principal photography started in January 92. The whole thing was shot in 44 days, so there wasn't much room to faff around. The script was meant to play out at night, but night shoots cost money, so the idea was binned. Meanwhile, the film was partly set around a small airport in Louisiana, but the shoot was actually in Florida. Initially, they were thinking of using Orlando International Airport, but it was too busy, so the production moved to Sanford International Airport. That gave them 8,000 feet of runway to play with, plus the old main hangar and control tower from the Naval Air Station. At the time, it was still a working airport, so some of the tarmac scenes had to be shot between real landings and takeoffs. Rich International Airlines supplied the aircraft for the exterior scenes, with the hijacked plane played by a Lockheed L-1011 TriStar. Even the pilot killed during the takeover was played by a real pilot. The Florida shoot also put production right near Wesley's hometown, and some of it was even happening close to his own home. While filming there, Snipes went back to Jones High School and offered paid extra work to honor students with the highest grades. The students who qualified went onto a list, names were picked at random, and some of them ended up in the carnival chase scene. Snipes also did nearly all of his stunt work. He handled the motorcycle scenes himself, and when it came to the fight between the two, Snipes and Payne wanted to do the scrap without doubles. The film also had a few odd little bits tucked into it, including Cutter reading The Art of War years before he made the movie, and the scene where an old lady mistook Cutter for Arsenio Hall. And martial law later flipped that gag by having Arsenio's character mistaken for Wesley Snipes. The fairground scene also had an out of time license plate, because even Passenger 57 somehow squeezed in a Back to the Future nod.
You, back to your seat.
His name's John Cutter, he's airline security.
After its run at the cinemas ended, it moved quickly into home media. The soundtrack came first in '92 with Epic Records putting it on CD and cassette. Then Warner Brothers Home Video released the film on VHS in '93, giving audiences another chance to watch Wesley Snipes ruin a hijacker's day from the comfort of their sofa. The DVDs followed later, and the film eventually made the jump to Blu-ray in 2010. Now, for fans who want to add the movie to their collection, I've added a link in the description below, and there should be a card popping up on screen to help you check it out. Now, Passenger 57 did more for Wesley Snipes than anyone else involved. The film helped push him properly into 90s action, and after that came Demolition Man, Drop Zone, Money Train, The Art of War, and of course, Blade. So this wasn't just another studio job where Snipes turned up, kicked a few blokes, and moved on. It made Hollywood look at him and go, yeah, this bloke can carry the chaos. The film also got slapped with the Die Hard on a Plane label, because the 90s loved trapping one hero somewhere awful and throwing terrorists at him. But Passenger 57 had Wesley Snipes, Bruce Payne, and one line that everyone remembered: always bet on black. Snipes didn't love that line at first. He said he didn't know the gambling reference, so he thought it might be about skin color, but fans kept quoting it back to him, and eventually he got to like it. And despite the film helping make Snipes a bankable action star, John Cutter never came back for a sequel. So Passenger 57 stayed as one sharp, short burst of early 90s action. Now, as for my own take on it, I love Passenger 57. I'm pretty sure I saw this before I even saw New Jack City. So apart from seeing Wesley Snipes in the Bad video, this was my proper introduction to him. And honestly, what pulled me straight in? Martial arts. I'm a martial arts geek, so anything involving people kicking ass with their feet has my attention straight away. He had the attitude, the speed, and the one-liners, so even though Passenger 57, as we said, is Die Hard on a Plane, it still has its own style. And we're not done yet. Next time we take a look at another classic movie. Until then, why don't you check out our previous video on The Chase.
Domino's Pizza! You hurt my little girl, Heaven, I swear to God I'll kill you myself!
The the whole. Thanks for watching, please like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.